Taylor Metzing is here and she's going to be taking roll call. That will be our first order of business.
Okay. Rusty Heckerman,
Here.
Mary Margaret Bell,
Here.
Jim Cundy, Andy Dobelstein,
Here.
Scott Horn, Tom Kiffmeyer,
Here.
and Susie Marino.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum this morning.
Excellent. Thank you, Taylor.
You're welcome.
All right, first order of business after roll is minutes. I'm going to pull those up and share my screen. Hopefully you did get a chance to look at those before. Sorry. I will, Derek, if you can hear me, I can also text you on the message, but I need permission to share my screen.
Should be possible now.
Perfect. Thank you very much, sir. The minutes are here. These are the minutes from the December 5th, 2025 meeting. Are there any corrections that anyone noted or wants to discuss here?
This is Catherine. A member sent me some typo corrections to make on page 4 and 5, like record to records and that sort of thing. And then on page 7, where we're talking about the electronic signature document, I just fixed a sentence for clarity about what was being authorized, what consent was being authorized. So the new sentence should read something like, let's see, the new sentence should read, Clark said they recognized electronic signatures as a method of authenticating the source of the consent of the release of information. So that has been corrected for clarification.
Thank you, Catherine. Hearing no other corrections, we'll accept sorry. Hearing no other corrections, is there a motion to accept the minutes as written?
I'll move to accept the minutes as corrected. I'll second.
Motion carries. Sorry. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. All right, motion carries. Next order of business are the records retention schedules, the first of which will be the general schedule for state agencies, fiscal, miscellaneous, and personnel sections. Catherine Giles and or Taylor Metzing will be speaking on this, and I will pull it up here for us to see.
Thank you. Okay, so I have 2 additions, 1 retention revision, and 2 administrative changes. The first addition is P0048 personnel record for temporary employment. This is a result of questions from agencies on the retention of temporary employee records. Although they don't have a traditional personnel file, an agency may retain records related to that temporary employee, like those in a personnel file. So this is just what to do with those. Since temporary employees are not an employee type, the Personnel Cabinet does not retain or maintain any records related to them. We also checked with the Kentucky Public Pensions Authority, who may consider temporary employment when calculating state services, but the state employee is responsible for submitting those necessary records. So as a result, the proposed retention is retain until separation of employee, then destroy. And essentially, any records for a temporary employee are no longer needed once employment with the agency ends, and the staffing agency is who retains that personnel file. The next addition is Series M0058, iReadable Exemption Agency Copy. We added the iReadable Exemption series to KDLA's retention schedule last meeting, and this is to add it to the general schedule for all agencies so that agencies are responsible for retaining their own copy of an iReadable exemption. And again, an iReadable exemption is when an agency applies for relief from maintaining permanent paper records. They can instead digitize those records and retain the electronic version after it has been approved by the state archivist or the ARM division. And the proposed retention for that is to retain for the life of the records identified on the petition. That's because some permanent records may become non-permanent after they've been approved for iReadable exemption. So I just wanted to make sure to attach the life of this with the life of the records. The retention revision we have is for M0047 photograph file state agency activities. The current retention is to transfer the records to the State Archive Center when administrative value has ceased, with a note saying all photographs should be transferred. And our proposed retention, excuse me, is, let's see. It is retain until administrative value has ceased, consult with Archives and Records Management Division staff for transfer to the archives. The state archivist will determine which images will be retained permanently. And this was suggested because in a digital age of photographs, we don't need every instance of a group photo or a portrait photo or something. We just want to be we want to be choosy about what we retain for the archives when it comes to photographs, instead of just thousands and thousands of what amount to the same picture. And then the two administrative changes I have are to F0001 annual financial report file. A few typos were fixed, but there were enough that instead of just fixing them, I just wanted to bring them to the advisory and the commission for review. And then M0055 agency conducted training files. We updated the contents to include recording of training, because sometimes recordings of a training might be made and distributed along with other training materials. The general advisory did review these and recommend their approval. This also went through the period of review for public comments, and there were no public comments, so I can take any questions.
I just wanted to clarify, and I think you were answering this in part, but going back to the temporary personnel retention, you said a staffing agency has a copy of this or documents that they were employed?
Yes, so like the staffing agency, like Adecco or whoever the temp agency is, they will retain personnel files related to that temporary employee. It's not the government agency that is required to retain them.
Okay, I was just trying to think if there was any, legal issue where you had to say, well, who was employed and what they were doing or whatever, is if that needed to be followed up, that there was somebody to check with past their employment.
That's a good question. The personnel cabinet said they didn't retain these kinds of files. And when we submit the paperwork for a temporary employee, it includes some of the typical personnel paperwork, like the personnel action request. But I think that's what we're talking about here. If there's anything afterward, no one has said anything to me about needing to refer back to those employees on like what kind of work they did, and other contract employees, like more specific contract employees, like a contract examiner at financial institutions. They might have a different set of paperwork and they're also there for a longer time. So as far as I'm aware, from the folks I've asked and from the general advisory members, no one has brought up a need for temporary employment records after that person's employment to verify anything.
Yeah, I just was curious because I was trying to think who they were and what they might be doing. And
Mhm.
if there could be any question, a year down the road or 2 years down the road, after what they did as to who did it and, any legal issues that came up.
Mhm.
So, if they're all okay with that, then that clarifies that.
Thank you.
I can comment also that, so is the staffing agency, are they under obligations to retain these records for the temporary employees for state standards, or is it just their own
It would be
company's guidelines?
it would be their own because they're not a government employee. But they would still be required to I think when we hire a temporary employee, the agency is still required to do an additional background check. So they will have that retained for, I think usually background checks in general are valid for like 90 days or 30 days. So they would still have that.
So it's totally their guidelines as far as those temporary records
Yes.
going forward. Yeah,
Yes.
thank you.
Mhm. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
All right, hearing no further discussion, is there a motion to recommend approval?
Almost.
I'll move.
And a second?
Or I'll second, one of the two.
Thank you. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Uh,
All opposed, nay. All right, motion carries. We'll move on to the next schedule, which is the general schedule for state agencies, the electronic section, which will be presented by Taylor.
Good morning, everybody, and thank you all for being here this morning. I have 3 additions to the general schedule, which are all going to be under the electronic section, which was newly created. This process began of adding these series onto the schedule after our electronic records analyst, Sarah Garrett, was able to do a full review of what is now defunct, but it was the electronic records general schedule that we were able to remove record series that were no longer current or valid. We were able to move record series to the appropriate schedules. And these are the final 3 record series, excuse me, that were identified to be moved. Ultimately, there was a survey created and sent out to all the records officers for state agencies to answer. There were 5 questions for them to answer regarding these 3 series to make sure that we were putting these series onto the correct retention schedule. And so these are all reports or logs regarding different types of computer summaries or activities. Ultimately, we found that it was going to be best to put it onto the general schedule. First of that being the agency run summary computer usage reports. We proposed the retention to retain summary usage reports until all audit or legal requirements for the record have been met and then destroy. The next series is the COT hosted computer run scheduling records. Ultimately, their proposed retention for that is to retain until the end of the current fiscal year for those records and then destroy. And the final series being the service desk / ServiceNow request logs and reports, with that proposed retention to be to retain until 1 year after the report or log creation, then destroy. These records were also able to be reviewed by the General Schedule Advisory in February at the meeting, and they were recommended for approval, as well as being under the public review period, and there were no further questions about those. I don't have anybody here, but if anybody has any questions about these, I'm here to answer.
Questions, no comment, no discussion? All right, I'll accept a motion to recommend approval.
so move. I thought they sounded pretty basic, so.
Great.
Second,
Thank you. All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thank you, everybody.
Thanks, Taylor.
you.
All right, next, we're moving on to Joe Isaac with the Cabinet for Economic Development. And their schedule is here.
Actually, my records officer has been trying to get on and she also was getting an invalid Zoom link. Can I get a new link sent to her and then I'll, once she gets on, I'll present the economic development. Just email me.
Perfect. Let's give her a minute to do so. Can I table that and move on with Rebecca in the meantime, Joe?
Yes.
In that case, we're gonna circle back to that once our guest has joined us. Becca is lined up for a few here, so I think we'll have a little bit of time to to give her a chance to get on. The first of Rebecca Hellmeyer's schedules is for the county jailer, which you see here.
All right, good morning, everybody. So for the jailer schedule today, I just have one deletion. The series, the L6921, which is daily jail logs and special reports. It's actually in the jailer schedule twice. One says 6921 and one says 6920. They are exactly the same. They read the same. So we are looking to delete one of them to make the schedule a little cleaner and a little easier for those jailers to use. So again, presenting to delete L6921 daily jail logs and special reports, but those are covered under another series.
Any other questions or discussion for Becca on this one? Hearing none, I'll accept a motion to approve.
Move.
Second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. We'll stick with you, Rebecca, and move on to the Lexington Fayette Urban County Government schedule.
Sure. So as it's been the last few times, I've got several within both the LFUCG at the Louisville Metro and then also the general schedule. So you will hear some of these again. But for the LFUCG schedule, I have 2 updated series and 1 administrative change. So the series updates are for L5547, which is felony investigation files for fires, L4853, the records of arrest, and L4989, child abuse, adult abuse, and domestic abuse case files. These are all being updated for consistency. Several years ago, several of the series that deal with felony investigations, the retention was moved from 80 years to 50 years. So we've just gone back in to make the rest of those felony related series 50 years to make it consistent across the board. They have also been updated for language and to just kind of clarify if there was no set trigger point for deletion. So also the administrative change for that one is to L5595, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration Inspections and Investigations file. This one just been updated for language consistency because it is also being added into the general schedule to make it again consistent. It's all consistent through all of those full schedules.
Thank you, Becca. Does anyone have questions for her on any of the proposed changes?
I'm curious whether and to what extent an expungement of somebody's criminal records would have an impact on the schedule, if you know. I'm not super well versed in expungement, so I don't know necessarily if an arrest record is expungible. But if it is, or if a conviction is expungible, whether the case file would be deleted if it were expunged. I'm just not sure.
I don't know whether the records of arrest are expungible. Generally, when we get expungement question, there is and I used to know this like off the top of my head, and of course I don't anymore. There is an attorney general's opinion that we show, and it's very clear on how expungements are dealt with. Man, I used to feel
I
like
can give you that. I can give you it, Rebecca. It's 16 OAG 011. If anybody wants to check that out, basically with expunged records, those records should be sealed. And this is usually for court records. Again, like Becca said, I don't know if it has anything to do with the arrest records. But if anything does pertain to expungements, it would be covered by that OAG, 16 OAG 011.
Awesome. Thank you both.
Thank you, Taylor, because that one was just gone.
You're welcome.
So I was gonna say 01, not 011.
Oh. And Brian just put it into the chat for anyone who wants quick reference.
Thank you.
We'll just have it pulled up so you can see it for your reference. Good question, Susie. Any other questions or comments for the proposed revisions to the Lexington Fayette schedule as presented by Becca? All right, hearing none, I would accept motion for approval.
So move.
And a second.
I'll second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion carries. All right, you're probably sensing a theme, but we are going to stick with Rebecca Halmeyer one more time. Actually, two more times. Next one for the Louisville, Jefferson County Metro Government.
Sure. So today for the Louisville one, I have two updated series and one administrative change, and you've heard all of them just a couple minutes ago. So the updated ones are for L5934, record of arrests, and L5979, the child abuse, adult abuse, and domestic abuse case file. Again, updated for consistency to make sure that the retentions are going to match across the schedules and just any kind of language updates that needed to be done. And then again, the administrative update is for the same. It's L6178 in this schedule. Occupational Safety and Health Administration Inspections and Investigations file, get updated for language consistency.
You can see those here. Sorry, Mary, you had a comment?
No, I was going to move that we approve them because we just did the same thing. Unless somebody's come up with a new idea since the last minute or two.
Any second?
I'll second.
Perfect. All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. One more time, Rebecca, we are going to the local government general schedule for local government agencies.
You got it. It's me again, and you're definitely gonna hear some again. So for the general schedule, I have one new series, excuse me, and 6 series updates. So the new series is L6981, the Occupational Safety and Health Administration's Inspections and Investigations file. Proposed retention is retain for 5 years and then destroy. This series is new to the general schedule, but not new to other schedules. It was noted when we were updating the airport schedule that they had it on there, but it was not on the general schedule, and we realized it needed to be included on a general schedule as well. So it is a new to the general schedule series for that. And then the updated series for the general schedule are L6669, the Felony Investigations File Fire, L4664, Criminal History Jackets, L4665, the Criminal History Index File, L4670, Identification Card File, L4676, Record of Arrests, and L4686, Child Abuse, Adult Abuse, and Domestic Abuse Case Files. Same as we've done before, these were updated for consistency and then to make sure that that 80 years is dropped to that 50 years. And then also to make sure there were triggers for destruction within those. For L4676, the record of arrest, I had backwards, so this was the one I was thinking of going first. The updated retention also does now include a 5-year retention for misdemeanor files, because those records can be either misdemeanors or felonies. So these have gone through the review period, and the general schedule advisory has recommended approval on these.
All right, thank you, Becca. Most of this sounds familiar from what we've been hearing, but any comments, suggestions, discussion? Hearing none, is there a motion for approval?
I'll move.
In a second.
Second.
All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries.
Thanks.
Thank you, Rebecca. All right, Joe, has your guest been able to join us?
Yes, I see, Mary Niekamp, records officer in, participant list.
Perfect. Welcome, Mary. Thank you to, I assume, Catherine, for getting our Zoom sorted out. We are going back to, it's C on the agenda, and we're going to hear from Joe Isaac on the Cabinet for Economic Development.
Good morning, everyone. First, I'd like to thank, the agencies I did work with this quarter, as I always do. They are a pleasure to work with, and, they put in hard work on the, records management side of things. For economic development, we have, a few deletions. Series 1212 community recommendation card file, 1213 confidential prospect code company code book, and 1215 the wood products development file. These are listed as permanent retentions. The agency indicates these programs are obsolete, and the information is obsolete, and so they're looking to actually just delete these off the schedule to get rid of that information. The series 1233 prospect client file also recommending deletion because this series the information that was captured in the prospect client file is more readily captured in the active prospect company file. The retention for that one is permanent. So it's just being merged into that series. The one revision we have is for the site building evaluation files. We're changing that to include program as part of the title to indicate this is an overall part of the site evaluation program. These records are maintained for the current locations for active or available development. And once those locations are kind of pulled off inactive or become obsolete, then we're setting a retention of 8 years. This follows the most financial records, 8 years covering 2 administrative terms and most audit time periods. Now, I will say internally, when we were meeting, there was a recommendation for 1212, 1213, 1215 to be actually closed instead of deleting, since this is that would be a significant reduction in retention from permanent to just completely off the book. We were seeking more information from the agency on that question. And again, Mary is here with us if she'd like to add to that.
Thank you, Joe and Catherine and committee. I really appreciate all that you're doing to approve these changes. And we're just basically trying to clean up our schedule. Times change, programs change, and these series 1212, 1213, 1215 especially, they haven't been touched in years. And so it's just time to make some changes, and I appreciate all that you all are doing to make the approvals. Thank you.
I just have a question on those 1212 through 1215. Are we talking like maybe obsolete for a period of like 2 or 3 years, or is it like a decades plus situation, or just I'm trying to get a grasp on, in broad strokes, kind of how long it's been since these programs were kind of concluded.
At least a decade.
Thank you, very helpful.
Yeah, this is open for discussion. Are there other questions anyone has for Mary or Joe? All right, hearing none, is there a motion to recommend approval?
Let me ask a question quickly. I just thought of something. If these locations are sold, because they're inactive, would a buyer be interested in any of this information?
This information has gone from being maintained by a lot of papers to being electronic and online now. And so the database maintains the properties and keeps up with, we have staff that keeps up with their status, I guess you would say. Does that answer your question?
Well, I just didn't know if a buyer would be interested in acquiring any of this information with a sale. And they might not be, I don't know.
I don't know. You mean a buyer, like a property buyer?
Yes, a private individual who then it's being transferred basically from state ownership to the private sector.
It's not state ownership of the properties. It's the properties that are available to, I guess, companies to locate in Kentucky.
Okay.
It's available properties. And so
Okay.
then when they go off the market, then they kind of get pushed to the back until they become available again. So it is a resource for companies to go to online and look and see what available properties are out there, just, by square footage and I guess ceiling height, things like that. So, to accommodate their businesses specifically.
Thank you, Mary, for that answer and other Mary for the question. Any other discussion? All right, hearing none, is there a motion for approval?
I'll move to approve.
And second,
A second.
all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. All right, that concludes the retention schedules. Our next item on the agenda is general schedule under review, which is going to be from Drew Preston. This item the next item on the agenda is general schedule under review, which are presented for discussion. These do not require votes by the members. These schedules will be presented to the commission as under review and be available on our website for review and comment as well. And you can see those. Is this the right one, Drew?
Yep, that's it.
Perfect, thank you.
So what we're presenting today is a new series to the general schedule in the law enforcement section. Was speaking with a local police department and they asked about informant files because they have them and don't know what to do with them. And we realized there was no series in existence on the local schedules for them to dispose of informant files. So we're just adding one in. We actually found one on the KSP schedule that pretty well did exactly what we needed to do. So we modeled this one after that. That'll be L6979 informant file. Retention is retained for 2 years after information is no longer active, then destroy. This is just going under review and will be presented to the advisor for the general schedule in the next cycle.
You can see that here as well.
I'm a bit confused on the on the verbiage after information is no longer active. Is that related to like an investigation being active, or I'm kind of just curious about what triggers the information being active versus inactive.
It's for the informant themselves. Basically, it's 2 years after they're no longer using the informant, essentially. So it's the information regarding the informant. This is strictly about the informants themselves.
Gotcha. So not like their statements or things that make it into a case file, but just
Yeah,
their.
that all stuff, all that sort of stuff gets carried into the case files. This is just basically them documenting, this is our informant, our contact information for them, any transactions we've had with them. That's just what this is for.
Gotcha. Thank you.
Any other questions? All right, thank you, Drew. We have another guideline. The next item on the agenda is the guidelines for managing social media records in Kentucky government. This will be presented to the commission for review and approval, and you'll hear about it today from Derek Clark. And it is here.
Well, thanks, Rusty. This is a revision of a document from 2015 that has been on our website as a resource, and we are the Electronic Records Working Group is going through and giving all of these a facelift, scrutinizing them as if they were an original document, making sure everything is still applicable. So in addition to making it a much cleaner, clickable PDF, if you'd scroll down a bit on that first page, we've added some additional notes like the somewhat recent statute prohibiting the use of TikTok on state-owned networks and devices. Overall, though, if you look at a side-by-side of the old one and the new one, the structure is very much the same. We just wanted to proof it, make sure it was still, everything in there was still relevant, and get a new date on there, especially so folks have confidence in it. So open to any questions.
If anybody needs to see a particular section, you can also let me know. I'm happy to pull that up on the screen. And if there is not any questions or discussion, then I will accept a recommendation for approval.
I move approval.
And a second.
I'll second.
All right, all in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. And I think that concludes all of our schedules and reviews. Let me close this out. Other business is up next. Before I get into any details about division updates, I want to circle back to one, thank you all for the discussion and conversation today, as well as the presentations by KDLA staff. But in particular, I think Mary Margaret Bell. I should have done this at the beginning, but this is her first meeting, so welcome. And thank you for joining us, and thank you for what you brought today, in particular as a first-time member.
Thank you. Well, it's my first time now, and Joe, I think, would remember me among others, and so it's not my first.
Welcome back. Perfect. Other business that I have here are division updates. I will open it to any branch managers that would like to provide updates on their branches. One branch that is not with us is Archival Services, and they've provided the following. It's mostly a note about staffing here. They hired an Archivist 1, Paige Marshall. She started in January as an Archivist 1 in the research room. They're currently conducting interviews for another Archivist 1. When that position is filled, we will actually have filled all vacancies for our division. So we're very excited about that. They're also taking action to have 2 interns in their division or their branch, I'm sorry, over the summer. So we're also looking forward to that opportunity for those students. Drew, Derek, and or Catherine, do you have any updates that you'd like to share? Nothing major?
I mean, business as usual. My staff is awesome, shout out to them for all the hard work they do. Just kind of business as usual for us.
Yeah, Derek Clark here. Shout out to Sarah Garrett, who wrote she pretty much rewrote portions, formatted the guidelines you approved today. So I wanted to bring attention to that.
And Catherine's joining us from Utah, so she might have other business, or she's still on.
No.
Oh, she must have had to drop off, so she might have had to go attend meetings there in Utah. But on behalf of her branch, they're doing a wonderful job reaching out to state agencies and have launched some new initiatives to make sure the records officers from those agencies are as up to date as possible with newsletters and working on developing training. So I'm very much looking forward to that. The division as a whole is moving forward with a proposal for a capital project that will propose the construction of a new state records center facility. So you might see some information about that in the coming years. We're at the very preliminary stages of that, but the proposal is for a facility that would accommodate 1.2 million cubic feet of records. That would include the approximately 480,000 cubic feet we already have, while giving us space to then grow into approximately 50 years of the future of collecting state records. I think those are the big items. Does anyone else have any updates or business they'd like to share? Or any questions about any of those updates, I guess? All right. Hearing none, is there a motion to adjourn?
So move.
I'll second.
All in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All opposed, nay. Motion carries. Thank you all.
Thanks, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you. Good one.
Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.